Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Today we're gonna talk about one of the most important things maybe for making music, which is reverb. Reverb creates dimension and also a sense of reality in your track, right? So today we're gonna talk about the Hybrid Reverb of Ableton 11, and it's a very powerful tool. There's some free presets included for the Hybrid Reverb. You can get them here down in the description, and also some tips and tricks here and there, so stick around until the end and let's find out why this reverb is so good. Alright, so first of all, let me give you a little overview about the Hybrid Reverb in general. So it's a new tool in Ableton 11, and there is also still the actual reverb, but the Hybrid Reverb has a lot of new functions and generally combines two different things. So first of all, we have the left section, which is a convolution reverb section. And if you don't know what that is, before Ableton 11 was out, there was already a convolution reverb tool included in Ableton. You had to get it though over Max for Live, and I always felt like it was a little glitchy at some points. But in general, what convolution means is it takes a sample to calculate what a room would sound like. So basically you could go into any room and sample the response of the room. For example, you could clap in your hands and sample that from far away. So you would have the response of the room and then put it in the convolution reverb. So you can sample your house or your favorite club or whatever you want to, but you can also just grab a, let's say a kick drum, like this, for example, and then the reverb thinks this is your room and creates some interesting textures. So convolution reverb is good for very real reverbs, but also very crazy reverbs. And then on the other hand, we have the algorithm part over here, which features some different algorithms that we're gonna have a look at later. And basically you can blend them and for sure also only use one of the two. And you have general controls of reverb, like the size, damping, decay. You also have some nice stereo effect here to make it a little wider. You have the pre-delay, obviously. What's really nice is you can sync the pre-delay actually. For example, make it 1/16, which is very nice for like rhythmic reverbs. You have the feedback option to loop the signal back into the input, which will create some kind of metallic textures in a way, depending on the sound. And one of the nicest features also, I think, is this kind of vintage mode here, which has 4 stages, and it adds some kind of bit crushing effect and noisy textures on the reverb, which in some situations is really nice to get this kind of analog and a little more real feeling to the sound. So now let me show you what I prepared here for you. We have some different drums, a lead sound and 2 other sounds here. Let me just play them all one by another to have an idea about what we're working with today, and then we're gonna start applying the reverbs. This is what we're gonna work with, and you can probably hear already that everything sounds a little dry. So what we mean when we say dry is that there is not too much effects on it in general, but talking about dimensions and dry or not dry basically means, is there reverb on or not? Maybe delay or not? And here there's no reverb at all. We have some kind of delay reverb on the right, I guess, on the sample, so that's already something. By the way, a lot of the samples, for example also the lead or the bass plug, are from the weltsound packs like my artist pack or the peak time sample pack, peak time serum pack, for example this bass plug here. So check it out on the page. But now let's talk about the reverbs. So for a drum room we want several qualities to apply, right? First of all, we want it to be short. We don't want this to be a very long tail because there's not even the space for the tail to exist, right? The drums are coming like one after another, and what we want the reverb to do is to just add this kind of dimension. We just need it to be a little stereo, a little breathing, and that's enough already. So you can see right now we have 0.4 seconds of reverb, and that sounds pretty good to me. Yes, I would say we just put on some reverb on different tracks, like for example my favorite technique to add reverb. So I'm gonna show you what I mean by this. I'm gonna start on top here on the clap. And work my way down to the point where I think I almost lost it, like I can't really hear it anymore. And around that spot it's perfect, because reverb most of the times doesn't have to be so upfront, so loud. It's just there to give the dimension. And I think you can all tell that when you're in a room and there's a lot of reverb, it's actually hard to talk. You cannot really understand the other person's. And basically in making music, it's the same. If you give all your synthesizers and stuff so big reverbs, no one's gonna understand each other, which means no one listening is gonna understand your track, because everything sounds like one reverb kind of monster, right? So I came from top, went down and down until I couldn't really hear it, and then somewhere around there is the spot. So maybe I put a little more because I think it sounds nice. Maybe I put a little less because I think it doesn't need that much. But it's around this area probably. So let's go for a little more, because the clap is very, very strong in this beat, right? And then we can do the same for the hi-hats, but we can also do this a little bit by feeling, right? This offbeat here, I know I wanted to have a lot of reverb, but this one doesn't need too much. The right just needs a little bit. And here on the kick drum, don't be like afraid. This is an LFO going in quarter shapes on the send and like 40%, around about that, because this is already a completely done sample of kick drum, rumble, bass line, noise texture, everything. This is from my artist pack, and you know, you don't want the reverb on everything, so I kind of worked around like this. But in general, the whole reverb on bass theme, like it's a big topic, and what I can tell you is you shouldn't put reverb on bass stuff, right? Because you don't want stereo bass information. But you can experiment with that. For example, I noticed a lot of people use reverb on their kick drum, right? I mean, like literally reverb, not the rumble kind of type, but literally reverb. And this actually sounds pretty cool. You just have to make sure there's no deep frequencies, like low frequencies, and the reverb, and then you're good to go, right? The reverb also shouldn't be like 2 seconds long. It should rather be like our reverb right now, like the drum room. So let's check this out. Right, this is what it sounds like to have this reverb on the kick drum. It just gives this kind of little dimension to the kick. So same thing I just said about the drums is also true for the kick drum in a way. But it surely depends on the genre you're making, and you know, just don't let anyone tell you like you can never do this and then save it like this, you know. Just, I mean, those rules are always only rules of thumb. Like for example, my rule to go from top to bottom when I apply reverb. It's only an idea or a good way for me to work, but it's, you know, just take it, listen to the information and pick the ones that are good for you, right? So we put a little reverb onto everything, almost everything. Maybe this hi-hat on the kick drum also needs just a little bit, right? It plays quarter notes as well. And what I want to do is first I want to shut down the reverb and then add it so you can hear the difference. So I guess you hear what I mean if you really listen in a good situation, right? You have to be in your studio or on good headphones, because reverb is something very, as I said before, subtle and also quiet in a way, right? It's kind of soft, and you need to also train your ear to really hear reverb. So this A and B thingy is very good, especially on drums. If you need to like study a little bit more on reverb and how to hear it, do exactly what we just did and turn off and on the reverb, maybe lower it a little bit until the point you cannot really hear it anymore, and like this you're going to train your ear. So this is how we can work with the drum room. And now let's have a look at the preset itself, how we can manipulate it. So I'm gonna solo the drum room here, sounds like this. And the most important thing I have to show you is the size, right? If we put the size down, our reverb kind of disappears into just one resonant tone in a way. And if we put the size up, we get this feeling of a very big church or so, but there's no higher frequencies. Also the transients are lacking and stuff. So we need this kind of sweet spot for the drums. We can also have a look here. This is the actual length of the reverb in the end. So see, this is already way too much. So maybe around here is the maximum. So let's listen to this. This already sounds too like muffled for me. I want it to be a little more bright, so let's go down. Maybe let's even go into the EQ, put this down, but a little bit up here. Typical trick for EQing, putting something down, putting something else up, right? This is a general rule of thumb. Here we go again, right? But one thing I want to talk about quickly also is the attack here, because you can see it drastically changes something. What it does change is actually just the sample the reverb is calculated on, and not the reverb itself. I mean, obviously this has an effect on the reverb, but it's important to know. Like you can see, if we put it like this, the tail will be louder. It's kind of obvious, I think, because if we have it like this, you can see there's only one loud spot in the beginning, and then it gets quieter already. But like this, we have a much louder reverb in general. So next up, let's check out the second one, which is the lead shimmer reverb. So shimmer is only working with the algorithm part here. We chose the shimmer part, and what shimmer means is that there is some higher frequencies that are pitched up added to the reverb. Like here we have a +12 shimmer, so the reverb will sound a little lighter, a little brighter, and this is beautiful. It's beautiful for melodic music, but for everything. You can use it on vocals, synthesizers, it doesn't matter. Shimmer reverbs are just great, let me just say that. So the sound we're gonna use for this is this kind of synthesizer steps, also from the Peak Time sample pack on our shop. And let's have a quick listen before we apply the reverb. So you can hear this shimmering, it sounds a little higher, it's beautiful also to maybe just fade into a drop, for example. And I want to show you just some tricks here. First of all, we can choose whichever pitch we want to, which is very nice, nicely made also here in the hybrid reverb. So we can go to, for example, +7 roundabout, where it's actually really hard to hit exactly +7. Maybe if we hold shift and go down, it works, but in general, it doesn't really matter, right? We can go to 7.1 and it will just have this little detuned feeling as well. So now let's have a listen to this. So it now plays the +7, which is the 5th note of the octave, right? So the perfect 5th, instead of the actual pitch of the sound, which is just adding so much depth to it. So once again, great for melodic elements. And there's one problem that you probably have had before. You think a lot of reverb sounds pretty good on here, and it's a long, big reverb, and it sounds nice, yes, but what's the downside of all this is that your original sound lacks or loses the power because it gets drowned in the reverb. So what we would actually want to have is the original sound to be super strong and then the reverb to come later, right? So one thing we can do is have a longer pre-delay, which I already have. It's 80 milliseconds, which is already quite a lot actually for a pre-delay. But that's not enough because the notes are longer, right? If we would only play one note, then there would be a space in between. But the reverb from this sound is maybe starting here, but there's still a lot happening, right? So what we can do here is use something we know from the kick and bass treatment, and that's simple as it is, sidechain compression. So we take a compressor, set it to sidechain, and now we choose the lead as the trigger, and let's see what happens. So basically what happens is the lead sound now ducks the reverb away until it's done, and then the reverb comes up. So we make some space for the original sound and still get the reverb. So that's a cool little technique to have in mind when working with reverbs just in general. Keep in mind that having a good amount of release is important to not make it sound too fast, right, when it comes up. And also attack settings really depend on the input source. So yeah, just play around with that and you will get some results pretty fast, I'm sure. So the last one I want to show you is this Robotic FX, and this one is a little crazy. We have both the algorithm and the convolution part, and we're also using the feedback here. And we're using the vintage emulation. We also use this on the Shimmer reverb, and I want to show you this, what happens. Let's just use the clap here for that. So let's apply the C send. So this is what it sounds like. You can basically hear that it's kind of long, not too loud, and has this kind of phasing effect. The phasing effect comes from the algorithm side. We chose the tides today, and with wave, phase, tide, and rate, those 4 parameters, we kind of control the way this shifting works. So let's just play around with this a little bit. So I guess you can hear that it's this kind of right-left LFO filter movement, also has some aspects of phasing, and it's very interesting for effects, right? This is why it's called Robotic FX. And I wanted to combine this with another reverb I chose from the convolution Bigger Spaces, the CeeLo cap, and I made it very big, not too bright. So the whole thing is kind of dark and somehow muffled, but very affected and organic. It kind of, I mean, not organic in a way that sounds like a real room, but more like organic. It moves up and down by itself. And then also we have the feedback here to loop back into the input. Let's compare the before and after. As I said before, it's very good for those metallic, robotic sounds. And maybe now some words about the vintage emulation, which is just great. It's one of maybe one of the nicest aspects even of the hybrid reverb, because what it does basically is bit crushing, as I said before. So let's listen to it in full power. So as you can hear, it adds this kind of analog feeling, this kind of noisy bit crushing sound to your original reverb, and this is just so great to make it feel more alive. And I want to show you this also on the bass plug, because it also works very well. Let's check it out. Also bring this back into the original loop. Right, so now everything has its own space, its own room, and now let's compare this for the very end of the video with the original, like everything without the reverbs. We start with the reverb and then I put it off. The presets, as I said before, are available for free. Just follow the link here in the description, and I hope you like this little insight into the hybrid reverb that is new to Ableton 11. Maybe we're gonna have a look at some more effects that are new. Let me know what you want to see next. Just put a comment on the video, and I hope to see you again very soon.